My sisters, hear me loud and clear. When God's hand is upon your life, the schemes of the enemy will not prosper. Evil may rise up against you. Lies may be whispered behind your back, and doors may slam in your face. But a woman covered by God walks in a divine shield that no darkness can penetrate. She may be attacked, but she's never defeated. She may be isolated, but she's never alone. There are 8 signs, 8 divine fingerprints that reveal a woman who is protected by heaven. If you see these signs in your life, it means God has put his mark on you. Not just to bless you, to preserve you from the evil that would otherwise destroy you. A woman protected by God doesn't move blindly. She sees beyond the smiles. She hears more than words. She feels when something isn't right, even when everything looks good on the outside. That's because the Holy Spirit whispers truth in her ear. She may not have evidence, but she has insight, sharpens her intuition to keep her from forming unholy alliances. There are moments when everything slows down, opportunities pause, people pull away. She may feel overlooked, but in reality, God is hiding her. He's shielding her from battles she wasn't meant to fight and detours that would destroy her destiny. When she's tucked away, it's not rejection, it's protection. Evil people aim to disturb your spirit, to pull you into drama and drag you into chaos. But the woman protected by God has a peace that passes understanding. She's not shaken by every insult or every rumor. Her stillness confuses the enemy. She doesn't fight every battle because she knows God is fighting for her. Don't cry when people walk away. Don't chase what God removed. Sometimes the most spiritual thing God does is subtract. A protected woman doesn't beg to be included where she doesn't belong. When snakes leave her garden, she praises God for clean ground. What looks like heartbreak was actually heaven's hand sweeping your path. God will not leave her isolated forever. He removes the toxic voices but replaces them with mentors, intercessors, and friends who sharpen her. Protected woman is not just surrounded, she's strategically positioned in community. The voices in her ear echo heaven's truth, not hell's confusion. Every attack sent to break her becomes a lesson. Every wound becomes a testimony. The enemy doesn't know what to do with a woman who bleeds purpose. Evil rises, she doesn't stay down. She worships through it. She learns from it. She grows in it. She emerges with new authority. Evil people look for reaction. They want you angry, bitter, offended, and loud. But the woman God protects doesn't respond on impulse. She responds in wisdom. Silence is power. Her calmness is a threat. The enemy gets confused when his weapons don't work. A woman who knows she is chosen doesn't settle. She doesn't compromise her values to be accepted. She doesn't silence her truth to avoid conflict. She walks in royalty, not approval addiction. The more she values herself, the more God surrounds her with people who value her too, and removes those who don't. In a world loud with deception and full of counterfeit people, where smiles can hide agendas and words can twist truth, discernment isn't just a gift, it's a weapon. A divine weapon, and any woman walking closely with God knows she cannot afford to navigate life without it. Discernment is not suspicion. It's not judgment. It's not paranoia wrapped in prayer. Discernment is clarity from the Holy Spirit, a spiritual sharpness that allows you to detect the presence of something unseen before it ever manifests physically. It's that gentle tug in your spirit when something looks good but feels off. It's the internal alarm that sounds off before the disaster strikes. It's God whispering, "This is not from me." There are moments in your life when you won't be able to rely on what your eyes see or what your ears hear. You'll need more than charisma, more than chemistry, more than credentials. Because everything that glitters isn't gold, and not everyone who comes into your life is heaven sent. Some are traps dressed like opportunities. Some are distractions dressed like destiny. That's why a discerning woman isn't just wise, she's dangerous to the enemy. You see, the enemy doesn't mind a woman who shouts in church but lacks spiritual vision. He isn't threatened by a woman who looks powerful but can't see through deceit. When you become a woman who walks with discernment, who prays and listens, who feels what can't be explained, who waits before she reacts, hell gets nervous because the enemy knows he cannot manipulate what God has made aware. Discernment gives you the ability to navigate relationships with grace and caution. Not everyone is meant to sit at your table. Not every friend is faithful. Not every romantic interest is rooted in love. And without discernment, you'll keep feeding Judas and calling him Peter. You'll open your heart to Delilah and confuse her for Ruth. But when discernment is activated in your life, God will expose what's pretending to be loyal, but is actually lethal. There are people sent to drain you. Others are sent to delay you. Some are on assignment to destroy you. But the woman with discernment doesn't fall for every charming smile or flattering compliment. She moves with wisdom. She tests the spirit behind the words. She pays attention to patterns, not promises. She prays for clarity more than she prays for connection. That's a woman who's spiritually armed and dangerous. Discernment will stop you from building with broken bricks. It will show you when to walk away before the damage is done. It will teach you that silence is often louder than words. That discomfort is communication. Sometimes peace isn't in saying yes, but in letting go. Discernment gives you the strength to leave places God never assigned to you and the foresight to not enter doors He never opened. A discerning woman understands timing. She knows that some opportunities are traps in disguise. She knows that some seasons require her to pause before she proceeds. Discernment teaches you how to wait without becoming anxious. It teaches you how to say, not yet, when everyone else is saying, now. It allows you to trust God's delay because He sees what's ahead while you're still staring at the surface. God will protect you through discernment before He protects you with miracles. He'll warn you in a whisper before He rescues you with thunder. But if you don't listen, you'll mistake His silence for permission and His delay for denial. A discerning woman doesn't just speak to God, she listens. And when God says no, she doesn't fight to make it yes. She trusts that the no was a form of mercy she couldn't see. Sometimes the most spiritual decision you'll make is to say no. No to people who drain you. No to places that distract you. No to desires that detour you. But without discernment, you'll keep entertaining what's killing your peace and embracing what's blocking your purpose. Discernment isn't just for avoiding evil people. It's for choosing divine connections. It's the gentle nudge that says, this person is safe. It's the peace that surrounds you when God places someone in your path who will walk with you in integrity. It's the confirmation that says, this is from me. When you pray for discernment, you won't just see who's wrong for you. You'll recognize who's right for you too. Discernment is spiritual maturity in motion. It keeps you from over-explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. It protects your energy. It guards your spirit. It prioritizes your purpose. You don't owe everyone access just because they ask. A discerning woman chooses who gets close, who gets conversation, and who gets silence. Sometimes God will allow you to feel uncomfortable around people so you don't attach to them. He'll let something feel off even when there's no visible red flag because He's protecting you before your mind can catch up. Don't ignore that nudge. Don't explain away your discernment to be polite. Don't dismiss your peace for the sake of being nice. Politeness is not your protection. Discernment is. A woman of God who is covered and called must guard what God is building in her. You don't owe everyone access to your anointing. Some people only come close to consume it. But when you live a life of discernment, God will warn you before you're wounded. He'll redirect you before you're ruined, and the more you cultivate discernment, the sharper it becomes. It grows in the secret place. It strengthens when you spend time in God's presence. It is refined through prayer, through fasting, through silence. A woman who seeks God in private will not be easily deceived in public. That's why discernment is not just a weapon, it's a lifestyle. So, my sister, if you've been sensing more, feeling more, seeing through more, don't ignore it. You're not crazy. You're covered. You're not paranoid. You're protected. You're not overreacting. You're discerning. That inner nudge is often the Holy Spirit saying, watch carefully. This is not what it seems. God gave you eyes to see, but He also gave you a spirit to perceive. Don't let the loudness of life drown out the voice of God in you. Walk in wisdom. Trust your spiritual radar. Be gentle, but don't be blind. Be kind. Don't be gullible. Be open, but don't be exposed. There are seasons in a woman's life when it seems like the world goes quiet. Invitations stop coming. Friendships start to fade. You find yourself spending more time alone than ever before. No calls, no how are you, no hand to hold. And while the enemy will try to convince you that you've been forgotten, overlooked, or abandoned, let me speak a deeper truth to your soul today. God doesn't just hide you to hurt you. He hides you to heal you. He doesn't silence your surroundings to make you feel small. He does it to grow something sacred inside you. Isolation isn't a sign that you're losing. It's a sign that you're being prepared. A woman protected by God will not always be surrounded. She will not always be visible. She will not always be understood, because God often develops his greatest warriors in the quietest corners. He doesn't train queens on public stages. He trains them in the hidden places, in silence, in solitude, in seasons that feel like exile. You may think you're alone, but what if this is the season where God is building your strength away from the crowd? What if your isolation is where you're learning how to depend on him instead of people? What if God had to take everyone else out of the picture so that his voice could finally become clear? Sometimes we are so addicted to company that we'll entertain confusion just to avoid being by ourselves. We'll tolerate dysfunction, stay in draining friendships, answer calls that damage us, all to avoid being alone. But God, in his love, will pull you into a season of separation, not to punish you, but to recalibrate your soul. When you're always surrounded, it's easy to lean on others for validation. It's easy to drown in opinions, but isolation strips all that away. It's uncomfortable. It's quiet. It's in that sacred space where you learn who you are without the noise. You learn to recognize God's whisper. You start hearing your own voice again. Isolation teaches you that your worth is not in your title, your circle, or your image. It teaches you that your peace does not come from being invited, but from being in alignment. It humbles you, purifies your motives, detoxes your heart from people pleasing. That's protection. Because not every person in your life is meant to stay for every season. Some connections were seasonal, not eternal. Some people loved the version of you that stayed small, that stayed quiet, that stayed accessible. But now, God is stretching you. He's shifting your posture. He's separating you to elevate you. So don't be surprised when certain relationships begin to fall away without explanation. Don't mourn what God removed. Isolation is often heaven's signal that you're entering a new realm. And in this next chapter, you can't carry the same weight, the same crowd, same habits. Even Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness before he stepped into public ministry, before the miracles, before the teaching, before the recognition. He had to be alone. He had to fast. He had to confront the enemy with no one cheering him on. That wilderness was not a punishment, a proving ground. Likewise, your isolation is preparing you. It's sharpening your discernment. It's anchoring your identity in something deeper than applause. You're learning that your anointing doesn't come from being accepted. Your value isn't tied to how many people support you. You're learning to walk with God confidence instead of crowd confidence. You'll come out of this season stronger, wiser, more rooted, more peaceful. Because when God hides you, he also holds you. He becomes your comforter, your counselor, your anchor. And the more time you spend in his presence, the less you desire shallow distractions. You don't miss the noise because you've discovered the beauty of peace. You begin to realize that you weren't rejected. You were redirected. You weren't forgotten. You were hidden for protection. That delay wasn't denial. It was God preserving your purpose. Some blessings come loudly. Others come through stillness. Some are announced with trumpets. Others are birthed in silence. There are battles you never had to fight because isolation kept you out of the crossfire. There are betrayals you never had to experience because God distanced you in time. There are mistakes you never made because you had space to think, pray, pause. You may not see the danger you were spared from, but your lonely season was divine armor. Your values solidify. You no longer tolerate chaos. You no longer compromise for company. You no longer bend for approval. You become a woman who is grounded, whole, and deeply aligned with her Creator. Let me tell you, that is terrifying to the enemy, because a woman who has found God in the quiet no longer fears being alone. A woman who has learned to sit with her own soul is no longer desperate to be seen. And a woman who has met her strength in solitude walks back into the world with spiritual authority. So don't rush this season. Don't pray it away too soon. Don't resent what's actually reshaping you. Let the silence heal you. Let the stillness prepare you. Let God finish his work in the dark. Because when he brings you into the light again, you'll be ready. You'll be ready to carry what he's called you to. Ready to walk away from what no longer serves you. Ready to step into rooms you used to shrink in. Ready to speak what you used to silence. Ready to build what only your healed heart could sustain. Isolation is not an ending, it's an incubation. You are not being buried. You are being planted. And in due season, what God has grown in private will be undeniable in public. There is a kind of peace that this world cannot give you. A stillness that circumstances can't shake. A rest in your soul that doesn't collapse when storms rage. That kind of peace, it doesn't come from people, status, or success. It comes from God alone. And when God gives a woman true peace, evil can try all it wants, but it can't touch her center. Can't reach her core. It can't reach her core. It can't steal what it didn't give. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of God in the midst of it. It's not a life without trouble. It's a spirit that stands unshaken in the middle of the storm. True peace isn't something you wear like perfume. It's something you become. It's woven into your being through fire, through betrayal, through disappointments that tried to break you but failed. It feeds off confusion, disunity, fear, and reaction. When a woman lacks peace, she's easy to manipulate, easy to bait, easy to drag into drama. But when a woman is covered by the peace of God, she becomes dangerous because she can't be provoked by evil's tactics. She doesn't overreact. She doesn't chase revenge. She doesn't scream to be seen or beg to be heard. She walks in quiet strength, grounded in something deeper than temporary emotion. True peace is not passive. It's not weak. It's powerful because it allows you to stay calm when everything around you is burning. It allows you to hear God clearly when the noise of life tries to distract you. It gives you the courage to say no when the pressure around you demands a yes. Peace keeps you from fighting battles God never assigned you to. It teaches you that not every insult needs a response. Not every attack deserves attention. Not every war is worth your energy. When evil people come to disturb you, they expect a reaction. They want you to stoop to their level. They want you angry, bitter, flustered, and defensive. But a woman with true peace doesn't fight from the flesh. She fights in the spirit. Her weapons are not loud words and impulsive rage. Her weapons are prayer, wisdom, and silence. Her peace frustrates evil because it makes their weapons useless. You see, when you carry true peace, you're no longer ruled by the external. Your joy is not determined by who stays or who leaves. Your confidence isn't shaken by who accepts or rejects you. Because true peace teaches you that everything you need is already inside of you and everything around you is temporary. You stop chasing validation. You stop pleasing people who wouldn't clap for you if you succeeded. You stop inviting chaos into sacred places. God-given peace is internal security. It's the quiet knowing that even if everything falls apart, God still has you. It's the deep rest in your spirit that says, even now, it is well with my soul. This kind of peace cannot be purchased. It cannot be imitated. It is the result of surrender. Surrender to God's will, God's timing, God's control. You don't get this peace by avoiding pain. You gain it by walking through pain with God as your anchor. You find it when everything you thought you needed is stripped away and you discover that God is still enough. Peace doesn't come when life gets easier. It comes when your faith gets deeper. And once you experience this peace, your standards change. You no longer allow anyone to disturb what God has built in you. You protect your peace like royalty protects a crown. You don't let toxic people sit at your table just to avoid being alone. You don't let negativity live rent-free in your mind. You don't entertain confusion for the sake of being liked. Peace becomes your boundary. Sometimes peace looks like walking away without explaining. Sometimes it looks like deleting the message you wanted to send. Sometimes it means being silent when you know you could destroy someone with the truth. Peace isn't always pretty, but it is always powerful. And make no mistake, evil will test your peace. The enemy doesn't want a peaceful woman. He wants a loud, distracted, offended one. He wants you emotionally worn out so you won't have the strength to pray. He wants you drained from arguing so you'll be too tired to focus on your purpose. But when you guard your peace, you guard your assignment. Peaceful woman is not a knave woman. She's just not available for nonsense. She chooses her battles wisely. She's wise as a serpent, but gentle as a dove. When she senses the enemy rising up, she doesn't panic, she prays. She doesn't break down, she goes into spiritual warfare. She doesn't shrink, she stands firm because her peace is her position of power. True peace transforms how you handle rejection, betrayal, and disappointment. Teaches you that some losses are really gains, that some closed doors are divine redirections. That silence is sometimes the loudest answer you can give. You don't retaliate because you realize God defends his daughters. You don't hold grudges because you understand that bitterness is too heavy to carry on your journey to destiny. Peace makes space for purpose. It clears your mind, it softens your heart, it sharpens your discernment, and it reminds you that the God who calmed the sea lives inside of you. If he can silence a storm with 3 words, peace, be still, then surely he can quiet your anxious thoughts. He can steady your racing heart. He can hush every evil voice that tries to convince you that you are not enough. This is the kind of peace that evil can't handle. It disarms manipulation. It silences gossip. It exposes the insecurity in those who try to provoke you, because peace is power under control. It's self-restraint in a world that glorifies reaction. And when you walk in that peace, you are not only protected, you are untouchable. This be the season where you protect your peace like never before. Let your gnaw be anointed. Let your quiet be strategic. Your presence speak louder than your defense. You don't have to prove anything to anyone when you know who you are in God. The enemy's goal is to steal, kill, and destroy. But his first tactic is always to disturb your peace. Because once he takes your peace, he can take your clarity, your focus, your confidence, and your calling. Don't give him that access. There comes a time in every woman's journey when separation happens, not because she wanted it, not because she planned for it, and not even because she understood it, but because God ordained it. And if you're in that season right now, if you're watching people walk away, friendships fade, relationships crumble, and connections dissolve, you are not being cursed. You are being called. We tend to think that when someone exits our life, it's a failure. We wrestle with guilt, shame, confusion. We ask questions like, oh, was it something I said? Or could I have done more? But the truth is, when God begins to separate you from people, it's rarely about rejection, it's about redirection. God is shifting your surroundings because he's shifting your assignment. You see, everyone can go where you're going. Not everyone can carry the weight of your calling. Not everyone has the capacity to handle your next level. And sometimes God will sever connections you would never sever yourself because he knows the true motives of people you trust. He sees conversations you didn't hear, tensions you didn't discern, and attacks that were planned behind your back. And out of his mercy, he allows the separation. Out of his protection, he causes that friendship to fizzle out. Out of his love, he lets that relationship die before it kills you spiritually. Because if you're ever going to walk in the fullness of what he created you to do, he must first cut off what compromises it. Separation is painful. It is strategic. You are not just losing people. You are being freed from people. You are not being punished. You are being preserved. When God calls you higher, he often lightens your load, and that includes people. Some people were with you for a season, not for a lifetime. They were there for the lesson, not the legacy. And the longer you try to hold on to seasonal people in lifetime positions, the longer you delay your breakthrough. A woman aligned with God must learn to recognize when a connection has expired, not because of bitterness, but because of growth. You may not understand it at first. You may feel abandoned. You may feel betrayed. But later, as clarity comes, you'll realize that God didn't allow that person to stay because they would have suffocated what he was growing in you. You'll see that their presence would have poisoned your peace. distracted your discernment, or damaged your destiny. Sometimes God will disrupt your comfort to protect your calling. He'll interrupt your circle because he's making room for elevation. He'll remove people without warning because he knows they can't handle your blessing. They clap for the version of you who played small, but they can't stomach the version of you that's about to stand tall. Let's be real, some of us wouldn't have let go unless God forced it. We loved too deeply. We held on too long. We excused too much. And so God, in his sovereign wisdom, steps in and does what we could not do. He removes, disconnects, detaches, and delivers. Not to hurt us, but to heal us. The Bible shows this over and over. God called Abraham to leave his father's house and his relatives. Why? Because destiny requires distance from familiarity. God called Gideon. He told him to reduce his army. Why? Because not everyone with you is for you. When God prepared David to be king, he took him out of Saul's palace and into the wilderness. Why? Because sometimes separation is the soil for elevation. You may be grieving who left. Heaven is rejoicing over what you're being prepared for. Don't allow the pain of separation to blind you from the power of what's ahead. Doesn't remove without reason. He doesn't subtract without strategy. There's something he's building in you, and he's making space to do it. Don't you dare feel ashamed. Don't apologize for outgrowing environments that once held you. Don't minimize your growth to make others comfortable. If God has called you out, then he's calling you up. If he has separated you, he is sanctifying you, setting you apart for a purpose that demands solitude before it brings spotlight. Some of the greatest growth you'll experience will happen in the aftermath of a goodbye. Some of the most authentic prayers you'll pray will rise from the ruins of disconnection. Because when God clears the room, he fills the space. People walk out, he walks in. And when he walks in, peace comes, strength comes, vision comes. In fact, one of the signs that God is about to do something major in your life is sudden separation. People who were once central suddenly seem distant. Relationships that once felt essential begin to feel draining, and your spirit knows something is shifting. That's not rejection. That's divine rearrangement. Don't resist it. Don't chase what God is removing. Don't argue with doors that God himself has shut. Don't beg for closure when God is giving you freedom. You don't need every explanation. You don't need to be understood. Sometimes your peace will come through letting go without needing to know. There's something holy about a woman who can walk away without bitterness, who can move on without malice, who can grieve what was and still bless what's next. That's spiritual maturity. That's trust. That's a sign that you know who your source is and that your destiny is not tied to people, but to purpose. So if God has you in a season of separation, don't resist it, lean into it. Get quiet. Let him recalibrate your spirit. Let him renew your strength. Use this time to heal, to reflect, to listen. Because the next time he releases you into connection, it won't be just anyone. It will be God-appointed alignment. He will bring people into your life who sharpen you, not drain you, who support your vision, not sabotage it, who see your worth, not compete with it. You won't be able to receive the right people until you've let go of the wrong ones. Separation hurts, yes. Sometimes the pain is proof that you're stepping into something sacred. Trust the process. Trust the pruning. Trust that whatever God is doing in this season, he is doing it for your good and his glory. Nobody prays for spiritual attacks. Nobody signs up to be betrayed, misunderstood, or mistreated. We don't ask for spiritual warfare. We ask for peace, for blessings, for favor. But the truth, a hard, holy truth, is that growth often comes through what tried to break you. You don't grow strongest on the mountaintop. You grow in the wilderness, in the fire, in the fight. A spiritually mature woman doesn't just survive the attack. She transforms through it. Every time the enemy came for her, she came out wiser. Every time someone tried to tear her down, she stood up taller. What they meant to destroy her actually developed her. What they used against her, God used to build her. You don't know your strength until it's tested. You don't know your power until it's challenged. You don't know your spiritual muscle until it's pushed beyond comfort. That's why God allows the attacks. Not because he wants you to suffer, because he wants you to see what's in you. Sometimes the only way you discover your authority is by facing opposition. The enemy wouldn't attack you if you were weak. He attacks you because you're chosen, because you carry something valuable, because your obedience is a threat, because your presence disrupts his plans. He saw what you didn't see in yourself, and he hoped the attacks would convince you to shrink, to settle, to surrender. But what the enemy doesn't understand is that you were made for battle. You were formed in fire. You were shaped by storms. You've been through enough by now to realize that your power doesn't come from people, positions, or popularity. It comes from your relationship with God, comes from knowing who you are and whose you are. Every betrayal sharpened your discernment. Every delay refined your patience. Every heartbreak broke off another layer of pride, of fear, of insecurity. You thought the attacks were setbacks, but they were actually setups for promotion, for clarity, for spiritual elevation. God is not wasteful. He doesn't let pain touch your life unless it's going to produce something eternal. He doesn't allow spiritual warfare unless it's going to birth spiritual weapons. And the truth is, your greatest lessons have not come from peaceful seasons. They've come from pressure, from affliction, from the tears that nobody saw, from the nights when you almost gave up, from the moments when you were on your knees with nothing but faith holding you together. You've learned to fight in the Spirit. Challenge you to love enough. You've learned to pray through pain. You've learned to worship when it doesn't make sense. You've learned how to keep walking even when the road disappears beneath your feet. That's not just growth. That's spiritual authority. Let me tell you, this authority is expensive. It's not given cheaply. It is earned through experience, through warfare, through obedience under pressure. And you, my sister, are walking in that kind of power, not because you were never attacked, but because you were and you refused to fold. The spiritual attacks made you see clearly. They exposed fake friends. They pushed you out of comfortable places. They forced you to pray harder, dig deeper, become more dependent on God. You don't pray like you used to. You don't panic like you used to. You don't need validation like you used to. And that's growth. You've been delivered from needing to be understood by everyone. You've been delivered from chasing peace in places God never called you to. You've been delivered from thinking that storms mean God has left you. Now you know that storms are sometimes the sign that God is actually closest, because his presence doesn't prevent attacks. It gives you power to walk through them with your head held high. And you're not bitter, you're better. You're not wounded, you're wiser. You're not fearful, you're focused. That's how you know the attacks didn't win, because instead of leaving you broken, they made you bold and care enough. You've grown in ways the enemy never expected. He thought you'd stop praying. He thought you'd curse God. He thought you'd walk away from your calling. Instead, you fasted, you forgave, you showed up, you worshiped through the fire. And now you've got a kind of strength that can't be taught in a class or found in a book. It had to be forged in the valley, in the silence, in the struggle. Let me say this plainly, your attacks are not in vain. God is using every single one of them for your good. Broken relationship is teaching you boundaries. That disappointment is pushing you toward destiny. That loss is making space for what's next. Nothing is wasted in the hands of God. Not the betrayal, not the tears, not even the unanswered prayers. All of it, every single bit, is part of your growth. So don't despise the battle. Learn from it. Don't wish it away. Worship through it. Don't let it harden you. Let it shape you. This is what the enemy hates. Not just that you survived, but that you're stronger now than you were before. That you know who you are. You built your life on a foundation that doesn't shake. And from here on out, every time an attack comes, let it be a signal to you that elevation is near. That purpose is unfolding. That growth is happening. A woman who knows her worth is a woman who walks in power. She doesn't have to shout to be heard. She doesn't have to beg to be seen. She doesn't chase love, validation, or approval. Why? Because she understands something sacred and unshakable. Her value is not up for debate. She knows that her worth isn't attached to who chooses her or who leaves her. It's not determined by her relationship status, her job title, her appearance. social circle. She understands that her worth was settled long before anyone had an opinion about her. It was declared by her creator, and it cannot be canceled by people. When a woman truly knows her worth, she becomes spiritually armored. Her confidence isn't arrogant, it's anchored. Boundaries aren't walls, they are gates, selectively open to protect what is precious. She doesn't move from insecurity. She moves from identity. When evil people come to manipulate, to control, to exploit, she doesn't fall for it. She sees through it. Because a woman who knows her worth isn't easily impressed by flattery or fooled by charm. She's not desperate for attention. She's not seduced by potential. She's not emotionally available to confusion. You see, evil loves access. It feeds off vulnerability that hasn't yet matured into discernment. But the woman who walks in the fullness of her value doesn't hand her pearls to pigs. She knows what she carries. She knows what it cost her to become who she is. And because of that, she doesn't cheapen her presence. Her worth becomes her weapon. It silences lies. It repels manipulation. It keeps her grounded when others try to make her question herself. Most of all, it preserves her peace. There was a time when she questioned everything, when she lowered herself just to be accepted, when she tolerated disrespect and mistook it for love, when she stayed silent so others could stay comfortable. But not anymore. When you start honoring your worth, things begin to shift. You stop entertaining what drains you. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop apologizing for growing. Some people will call it pride, but it's not pride, it's protection. Knowing your worth makes you selective with your time, with your energy, with your heart. You don't allow just anyone to speak into your life. You don't go where God didn't send you. You don't agree with things that disturb your spirit. You walk away from what doesn't align. Not because you're better, but because you're finally whole. This is why the enemy works overtime to make women forget who they are. Because once a woman knows her worth, she becomes unshakable. Once she sees her reflection through God's eyes, she refuses to shrink again to fit anyone else's view. And knowing this becomes your filter. It helps you recognize what aligns with your calling and what distracts from it. It helps you see red flags early. It helps you trust your intuition, your discernment, your yes. You no longer say maybe when your spirit is screaming no. You no longer stay out of guilt. You no longer explain why you're leaving environments that no longer honor you. Some people won't like this version of you. They were used to your silence, your bending, your exhaustion. But now your worth is speaking. And when your worth speaks, everything that was used to you being less than who God called you to be will start to feel uncomfortable. And that's okay. Woman who knows her worth stops auditioning for rooms she was meant to walk in as a guest of honor. She stops trying to be enough for people who don't even know what enough looks like. She realizes that she is not too much. She's just not for people who prefer less. This is how your worth becomes your shield. It guards you against being used, against being exploited, against being talked into smallness, against relationships that look good but are built on manipulation. It shields you from returning to things God already delivered you from. And here's the beauty of it: the more you walk in your worth, the more God surrounds you with people who see it too. People who won't compete with you, but celebrate you. People who don't take advantage of your light, protect it. People who water your growth and not your fear. People who speak life and not limits. You must know what God knows about you. You must believe what heaven already declared over you. You must rise to the level of love you've been praying for. You stop settling for relationships that don't reflect your value. You stop settling for jobs that drain your spirit. You stop settling for friendships that feel more like obligations than joy. You stop settling for spiritual crumbs when God has prepared a full table.